Shock! Russians are cut off from the world. Moscow is on edge. The capital is entering a mode of total blockade. The dictator has dared to do it. Meanwhile, partners are pushing in with powerful support. Hundreds of millions for drones from Germany. The order is already on the table. Ukrainian drones are in high demand. Saudi Arabia is ready to pay millions for our new developments. And at Ukraine's border, uninvited guests. Orban, it seems, cannot live without Druzhba. A Hungarian group arrived without warning to check the condition of the oil pipeline. However, officially, they are nothing more than tourists. This will shock you. Watch until the end. Let's break down what's happening right now. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. Maria Farafonova here with the latest updates. The heart of Russia appears to be entering a phase of total catastrophe. The beginning of a blockade. Mobile networks have disappeared in at least 23 districts of Moscow.
Mobile internet shutdowns have been ongoing in Moscow for the 5th day.
Russians are complaining. Their phones show LTE network availability, but in reality the internet does not work. There are also difficulties with phone calls and SMS messages.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov asserted that everything was being done in strict compliance with current legislation, and that information about the blockages was provided in advance.
In the so-called whitelist, only VK services Yandex, the Gosuslugi portal, and the state messenger Max remain accessible. Authorities have begun a harsh purge of messengers and social networks, all in the best Russian traditions. Ukraine will receive an additional 200 million euros from Germany to strengthen protection against Russian attacks. This was announced by the president of the Bundestag, Julia Klöckner, speaking at the session of the Parliament of Ukraine. The funds will be directed toward the purchase of reconnaissance drones and civil protection measures, making it possible to better protect people and improve the security of critical infrastructure.
We continue to strengthen our support precisely where Russia deliberately relies on exhaustion. In these days, Germany is providing an additional 200 million euros to strengthen protection against Russian terror. This concerns increasing funding for reconnaissance drones and civil protection.
Saudi Arabia wants to buy Ukrainian drones worth millions of dollars. The kingdom is negotiating with Ukraine to acquire a large batch of interceptor drones, which could be used to defend against Iranian Shahed attack drones, reports the Wall Street Journal. According to sources cited by the publication, the potential deal could be valued at millions of dollars. However, no final agreement has yet been signed. Riyadh is also reportedly discussing the purchase of Ukrainian electronic warfare systems. Other Gulf countries are also showing interest in Ukrainian technologies. Representatives from Qatar, for example, have already visited Ukraine to study counter-drone systems. According to the Wall Street Journal, Ukraine's counter-drone capabilities are not limited to missile-based air defense. They also include so-called interceptor drones capable of destroying enemy UAVs by colliding with them or detonating nearby. Additionally, Ukraine actively uses electronic warfare systems that disrupt the control and navigation signals of adversary drones. As tourists, Hungarian officials arrived without prior notice to assess the condition of the Druzhba oil pipeline. This was reported by State Secretary of the Ministry of Energy Gabor Csepek right at the border checkpoint. According to him, the Hungarian delegation plans to hold talks not only with the Ukrainian government, but also with the representative of the European Commission regarding the restoration of the Druzhba oil pipeline. In his statement, the Hungarian official referred to the energy situation caused by the war in the Middle East. In addition to the Hungarian Energy Ministry's state secretary, an oil industry specialist, a government official, and an energy market analyst also traveled to Ukraine. Before the visit, the Hungarian delegation held talks in Bratislava with representatives of the Slovak energy market and government. However, for some reason, Ukraine was not notified. Spokesperson of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Georgi Tichy, responded to this unexpected visit.
We know that this morning a group of Hungarian citizens entered the territory of Ukraine under the general rules that apply to all citizens of Schengen zone countries using visa-free travel. Any individuals with a tourist purpose can enter Ukraine in this way from Schengen countries.
At the same time, he noted that on the territory of Ukraine, this group of officials does not have any official status or scheduled official meetings. Therefore, it is definitely incorrect to call them a delegation.
Citizens of other states may stay on the territory of Ukraine if they treat Ukraine with respect and follow the general rules for visiting, including for tourism purposes.
Almost the entire territory of the Dnipropetrovsk region has already been liberated from the Russians. The armed forces of Ukraine only need to finish operations in 3 small settlements and carry out clearing operations in 2 more, according to Major General Komarenko, head of the main operational directorate of the General Staff. More details about what is happening on the front line are in our military review.
UAVs in the Bryansk and Belgorod regions. There, as well as in the temporarily occupied Crimea, explosions and fires have been recorded at military facilities. A powerful strike on a Russian Shahed air defense system Strela 10 in the frontline zone, precisely where the liberation of occupied territories is taking place. Almost the entire territory of the Dnipropetrovsk region has already been liberated from the Russians. The armed forces of Ukraine need to finish the job in 3 settlements and clear out 2 more.
We had some small additional reserves that we were carefully preparing in our various training centers. That's it. We understood from our intelligence that the Russians were transferring their reserves and accumulated forces to the Zaporizhzhia direction. We tried to carry out what is called a counter-offensive strike there. Let's put it this way. We used military cunning and made the Russians believe we would attack Zaporizhzhia, but in reality, we did it in Dnipropetrovsk.
President Zelensky, together with Commander-in-Chief Syrsky, visited about a dozen corps and brigade headquarters in the Donetsk region to check their readiness for the Russian spring-summer offensive there.
I think that with the current pace we have, the buildup of our reserves, our preparations, and counter-offensive measures, I believe this is impossible, at least for the next 3 or 4 months, that's for sure. Overall, I think that the point of no return has already come for the Russian Federation. Problems with the armed forces, problems with financing, problems with reserves, problems with ammunition, weaponry, and overall, there is severe demoralization among the armed forces of the Russian Federation. I think that this point of no return actually began right after the end of the cold winter. That's it. I think that the offensive actions of our Ukrainian army will continue. Russia will keep retreating, and God willing, I believe that we will end this war this year.
The commander of the Joint Forces Group, Mikhailo Drapatii, told journalists from Ukrainska Pravda that the Russian occupiers want to create a 20-kilometer buffer zone along the border in Sumy and Kharkiv regions, which is why they are seizing border villages.
Because of these mass non-payments in the Russian army and all these problems, their situation in the army is now critical. That's it. Therefore, this really helps us, the Ukrainian army. And because they don't have time to gather people, don't have time to get reserves, we have the opportunity to probe their defenses, find a weak spot, strike at that weak spot, and accordingly try to push forward on their heels into their positions, align the direction of our attack, and then advance further. That's why right now is the most opportune time for all of this.
Ukrainian ballistics will be an analog of ATACMS, according to the developer company Firepoint. It was announced that the next missile, the FP9, will be even more powerful than the already tested FP7, which is capable of hitting targets hundreds of kilometers away. The FP9 will have a range of up to 800 kilometers, and its first tests are already being prepared.
Ukrainian weapons are tearing through the Russians, and our drones are weapons that even the West cannot do without. In addition, the FP1 and FP2 drones have been modernized. Now they will fly with a larger warhead, according to the chief designer of Firepoint, Stillerman. Here are the details.
The Ukrainian company Firepoint has announced a revolutionary upgrade to their middle strike and deep strike drones, which will now carry almost twice as much explosives while also becoming cheaper.
We will make it so that the FP1 will be able to carry over a distance of 1,000 kilometers. We've already done it. We moved the fuel tank into the wing, and now it will carry 105 kilograms over 1,000 kilometers. Similarly, the wing tank will allow us to significantly increase the payload of the FP2 up to about 158 kilograms. There will be ammunition. We still hope to lower the price. We have found some solutions that will allow us to completely eliminate the need for expensive CRP antennas and GNSS receivers, and this will be a major breakthrough.
Ukrainian drone technologies are taking the world by storm. At the joint factory in Germany, they are already producing the Ukrainian AI-powered reconnaissance drone, Linsa. They plan to reach 10,000 units per year.
We also benefit from this. We are learning thanks to the large amount of data and experience that Ukraine is gaining on the battlefield. In the drone sector, everything changes very quickly. sometimes within just a few weeks or months, and this is important both for Ukraine and for us. And
At the joint venture in the United Kingdom, they are producing Octopus interceptor drones, which are now so essential not only for Ukraine.
I am pleased to announce that Ukrainian engineers are working together with British engineers in the UK, and I'm glad to say that we are starting production of these improved drones and interceptors this month. And next month, we will begin deliveries to Ukraine, and we aim to produce more than 1,000 drones per month for your soldiers.
After the start of the war between the US and Israel with Iran, British Prime Minister Starmer immediately asked Ukraine specifically for help with drone technologies.
We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue our defensive actions in the region. We will bring in experts from Ukraine to help partners in the Persian Gulf countries shoot down Iranian drones by striking them.
The president of Ukraine stated that requests for assistance also came from the Persian Gulf countries, so experts are being sent there along with a small batch of drones. And in return, Ukraine expects to receive scarce missiles capable of shooting down ballistic targets.
As for our expert groups, of course, we are talking about military expertise. And with the appropriate protective capabilities, they will be sent, as I mentioned earlier. If we are talking about increasing the number of resources, we would like this opportunity to be available on both sides. You know which resources we are lacking. We understand what the Gulf countries are lacking. We are discussing this track as well, but it's too early to talk about the details.
Yes, on the one hand, Ukraine can take advantage of one possible option. On the other hand, if the war continues long enough, the whole world will feel a shortage of interceptor missiles, because drones are being shot down. Iranian drones with extremely expensive Patriot missiles, because there must be other methods to counter drones. And it's very strange to me that the American military, who for 4 years could have been observing how the Russian-Ukrainian war was changing, apparently weren't watching anything at all. They were living in their own world.
Ukrainian drones are so unique that on American Fox News they were mistakenly presented as their own. They showed Sting Wild Hornet drones as if they were American technology. Of course, in the next broadcast, they had to correct themselves.
And to make it even more convincing, Ukraine will support us. They combined the most advanced anti-drone technologies developed to counter Iranian drone swarms since Putin's invasion. Zelensky says he wants to help. Maybe you could offer us those Hornets. The Ukrainians have created these wonderful and inexpensive, fast and maneuverable kamikaze drones.
While the whole world just sat and watched the war in Ukraine for 4 years, doing nothing, and thinking it wouldn't affect them, technology was advancing by leaps and bounds. And even the countries that are leaders in the defense industry have been left behind, at least when it comes to drone technologies, which will now, of course, work to the advantage of Ukrainian companies.
Ukrainian ballistic missiles flying up to 800 kilometers. The appearance of a new missile has been announced by the flagship of missile engineering, Firepoint. What kind of trouble can it bring to the Russians? And what other new developments of Ukraine's defense industry are entering the war? More on that next.
Ukrainian ballistic missiles will start striking Moscow as early as this summer. According to the designers, its tests are now in the final stage. Next will come mass combat launches of the FP9 system.
With the FP9, it will be easy to hit targets in Moscow because it will reach the target at a very high speed. For example, the Iskander currently travels at 800 meters per second. It hits the target at that speed. Ours will be above 1,200. And that's why we'll be able to overcome air defenses much more easily. Yes, some will be lost, but about 25% will definitely break through and hit the target.
So the missile will cover 1 kilometer in 1 second. These are incredible figures by today's standards, even for Western weaponry. At the same time, the FP9 will be at least 2.5 times cheaper than the same ATACMS. Its cost will be just over $500,000. Meanwhile, the main weapon for the FP9 developers today is the junior version of Ukrainian ballistic missiles, the FP7. This is a tactical level weapon designed to hit targets at shorter distances.
The FP7 is a kind of replacement for ATACMS. It's cheap and it's for short distances. That's 300 kilometers and a lightweight. The FP9 is its counterpart, 800 kilometers, 850 kilograms warhead. Or, well, 850 kilometers, 800 kilograms warhead. 800 kilometers is Moscow, and that's even St. Petersburg.
The average flight altitude of the FP-7 is about 65 kilometers. The warhead weighs up to 150 kilograms and the flight speed is 1.5 kilometers per second. This allows it to reach the farthest target in just about 4 minutes. As recently as last year, the developers of the FP-7 stated that the missile is being designed as a high-speed weapon and should meet the standards of systems in its class. S-400. The system was developed as a means capable of overcoming Russian air defense systems around the capital of the Russian Federation. When the appearance of the missile was declassified, it became clear that it is essentially a copy of the S-400, but much more technologically advanced and lethal.
The company has already officially confirmed, yes, this is a missile that was copied from the Russian one. It is considered Russian, but it is the Soviet 486 for the S-400 surface-to-air missile system. And again, it was copied. This refers to its aerodynamic shape, control system, in other words, the design and composite materials. The control system, meaning the control scheme, even the layout, but inside, everything is different. Even the body material is different. Composite materials are used. It is lighter than the one from the S-400 system, which was actually developed during the Soviet era. It was adopted into service in 1990. And because of this, in other words, by copying, they actually saved a fairly significant amount of work and time.
But in Ukraine, the claim that there are no analogs to our developments is not used. As a result, with minimal losses, the defense forces received an effective means of destruction, the launches of which do not need to be coordinated with anyone. As a result, the use of these missiles became an extremely unpleasant surprise for Russia, with no possibility of a retaliatory strike.
15 minutes from the moment they arrived to the moment they fired. This is really very fast under the current conditions of war, where every minute counts. We saw how Russia lost 2 or even 3 Iskander launches at once in one of the episodes. That's what happens when you don't have time to arrive, fire, and leave.
Speaking of the FP9, analysts say that it should be understood that this missile will not only be a breakthrough for our defense industry, but also an extremely important bargaining chip in negotiations with Russia. After all, it can fly a distance of more than 800 kilometers and will be, arguably, the first serious threat to Moscow. It's also important that the development is domestic, which means our partners won't be able to dictate in the end-user certificate where and how it can be used.
Ukraine is fighting for independence, so the desire to be independent is deeply ingrained in us. Right now, we can't be completely independent in terms of skills and materials, but we are trying to minimize imports and rely on local production as much as possible. We are largely dependent on the help of our partners for funding, intelligence, expertise to develop the entire ecosystem, as well as for general political support at various levels. When it comes to skills and equipment, we try to do everything ourselves.
Analysts note that, along with the FP9, British missiles will soon be in service with the defense forces. Nightfall, which, when used in tandem, are capable of inflicting tremendous losses on the Russian war machine.
If you equip a ballistic missile like the FP9, or by the way, this same Nightfall, with a warhead containing cluster munitions, it becomes ideal for eliminating the remaining Russian strategic aviation, for example, near Saratov.
At the same time, we shouldn't forget about the legendary Ukrainian Flamingo from those same Firepoint developers. According to the Atlantic Council, these cruise missiles could even change the course of the war by literally destroying Russian rear positions. Analysts are focusing attention on the recent Ukrainian armed forces strike on the Votkinsk military plant in Udmurtia, which is 1,400 kilometers from the front line. To date, this remains the longest-range use of cruise missiles in the Ukrainian-Russian war. And by the way, it was incredibly effective.
Understand, this isn't just a production facility, it's for Iskanders. The Bulava is produced there, components for the Bulava submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Right now, production has been halted. They shut it down. The Topolem ground-based missile system, an operational tactical complex, and its modifications are also produced there. And Yars, which has an extended range, and the same Dam Doreshnik, with reduced range. So by and large, I would definitely say that this is essentially Web 2.0 as we know it. And the Americans and whoever else, the countries involved in the nuclear standoff, can applaud and thank Ukraine for weakening the missile potential of Russia's nuclear triad.
The successes of our missiles have also been duly noted in the ZEED community, essentially acknowledging that the war has entered a phase where strikes will begin to hit all across Russia.
Flamingo missiles, apparently it was precisely these that have already reached Chuvashia. If strikes are already hitting this Torstadt, you see, attacks are now reaching the Volga region with such long-range weapons. This is, so to speak, a very alarming signal. It shows the worsening of our situation. And it's not just happening on the military front, but economically as well.
Speaking of the economy, it's important to understand that the targets of Ukrainian missiles may include not only military facilities, but also oil refineries and the energy sector. This would deprive Russia of billions of rubles in budget revenue, as well as the ability to carry out terror in Ukrainian cities with impunity.
That's all for now. Stay with us to be the first to know what's happening right now. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. See you soon!